if you were there and you were testifying, would you say that that is a surrender position? Because that has been the case from all the witnesses, that he was hands up, I'm surrendering. You're saying that's not so?
No. Au contraire. I'm saying that it fits in with the hands up like this, the right arm, so that a bullet enters in the back of the forearm and exits in the front of the forearm. And the bullet in this position enters on the upper arm in the front and exits in the back. Is that an offensive position?
So how might the grand jury interpret the information that you're telling us right now?
Well, I never bet a plug nickel on any jury, and a grand jury, which is, of course, influenced and controlled by the district attorney. You know the old saw that any district attorney that can't get a grand jury to indict a ham sandwich isn't worth very much. So, you know, I'm not going to predict. I will predict. This is not based on forensic science. This is just based on 52 years of dealing with this business of police shootings. I will predict that the grand jury is not going to indict Officer in this case.
Because?
Because there will be enough information to suggest that Michael Brown was aggressive, that he was lunging at the police officer, that the police officer felt in imminent threat of his life or well-being, and that's even before you get into the racial issue.
Dr. Wecht, I want you to stick around, because I didn't intend on having you in this next conversation, but will you just listen, because we may need you to weigh in, okay? So stand by, Dr. Cyril Wecht. I want to bring in now David Klinger, who is a police officer in L.A. and Redmond, Washington, and the author of Into the Kill. Also, CNN political contributor Van Jones is here, and CNN law enforcement analyst and former FBI Assistant Director Tom Fuentes. Tom, what do you think, what he just said?
Well, I think what it sounds like is that there's going to be enough confusion that even if Officer Wilson is indicted and charged, which is a low threshold, as the doctor said, it's easy to indict anybody almost in the hands of the district attorney. What the problem's going to be is that there is so much doubt now that to convict Officer Wilson of whatever, of improperly killing Michael Brown, to convict him beyond a reasonable doubt, I think there's going to be a lot of reasonable doubt. Yeah. There's going to be reasonable differences in how the forensic evidence is interpreted. There are contradictory eyewitness statements. I know we keep hearing that there's unanimity, but there isn't. I've heard many different accounts from eyewitnesses of what was going on at the time of these shootings. Okay. So I think there's a lot of doubt.
David Klinger, as you heard that?
I basically concur. However, I wasn't able to see the position of the arm that Dr. Wecht was talking about, so I'm not able to comment on that. But clearly the notion of reasonable doubt is there. I think we still have to wait for a lot more information about the blood evidence in the vehicle, because I think that's going to be very important. Because generally, if someone is just coming at a police officer, the police officer is not permitted to shoot. There has to be something about the nature of that movement that would indicate imminent jeopardy of his or her life. And so consequently, there's still an awful lot out there that needs to, awful lot behind the door that needs to come out before I or anyone else could really opine about what may or may not have happened, and therefore whether it was appropriate to shoot or not.
I want to get your response, Van Jones. I realize that you're not law enforcement, but what do you think of what Dr. Wecht said?
Well, I am an attorney, and I'm from a law enforcement family, so I got at least a little bit of insight here. What was shocking to me, and I think what would be shocking to the average viewer at home, to hear someone with his level of expertise say, as best he can read the evidence, it's consistent with the idea that he was not in an offensive posture, he was in a defensive posture, and he was shot in the arm, fell forward, and got shot and hit. That's exactly what people have been saying. That's why this thing blew up. But for him to say that and then turn right around and say, but he still does not believe that this grand jury is going to even indict this officer to get him in front of a real jury, that is shocking, because what it says is that there's an acceptance of a certain level of what I can only call either corruption or cynicism within this law enforcement agency, that even with good evidence that what people said happened did happen, he still does not think there will be an indictment.
Van, is Dr. Wecht still there, listening? Okay, so I think what Dr. Wecht, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Van, and I want you to comment on this after he does. I think what Dr. Wecht is saying is considering all the evidence, not just the evidence of what he talked about, you know, the trajectory of the bullets and all of that and the stance. He's saying considering what happened in the car, whatever led up to it, and everything else, that there will be enough evidence of aggression that the officer, plus this, that the officer will not be indicted. Is that correct, Dr. Weck? Is that
May
what
I
you're saying?
comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
That's not my vote.
Okay.
I was asked, what do I think is going to happen? If I were on the grand jury, I would vote for indictment. This boy was shot 8 times. I'm not going to go through the trajectories again. Wearing short pants and a T-shirt. No, I would vote for indictment. I want to make it clear.
But you
I'm
don't think
telling
that
you
they're
that
going to do it.
if I have to place a bet, buying you guys a cup of coffee on the other side of the bet tomorrow, I bet you that they will not indict.
So what,
And
excuse
that
me,
is
so
why
what
people
Van
are
is
upset.
saying then
That's why
is
people are
correct.
upset.
Van's assessment, in your estimation, is correct then?
Well, yes,
Okay.
because of the way the public reacts to police and police shootings. They just bend over very far. That's a subject for a discussion another day. Is that right? I'm just telling you what I have experienced in all my years, my decades of dealing with police shootings, not only as coroner here, but in police shootings around the country. It takes a great deal to indict an officer. And I don't want to make this into a racial issue, but when the officer is white and the victim is African American, then it is a little easier for the jury to not indict.
And